Welcome to Historical Legacies. Here, we dive into history's most intriguing stories, unraveling mysteries, and uncovering truths from the past. Subscribe to join our journey through time's greatest moments. Part 1. Early Life and Family Legacy. John Quincy Adams was born on July 11, 1767, in Braintree, Massachusetts, into a family deeply rooted in the American colonial experience. His father, John Adams, was a prominent lawyer and a fervent advocate for independence, who would later become the second president of the United States. His mother, Abigail Adams, was renowned for her intellect and political acumen, often engaging in correspondence that revealed her deep understanding of the political landscape. Growing up in such an environment, young John Quincy was exposed to the revolutionary ideas that were shaping the nascent nation. During his childhood, the American Revolution was unfolding, and the Adams family was at its epicenter. At the age of 7, John Quincy witnessed the Battle of Bunker Hill from Penn's Hill near his home, an experience that left an indelible mark on him. His father's involvement in the Continental Congress meant that the family was frequently separated, but Abigail ensured that her son's education remained rigorous. She instilled in him a love for learning and a sense of duty to the country. In 1778, at the age of 10, John Quincy accompanied his father on a diplomatic mission to Europe. This journey was the beginning of his extensive exposure to international affairs. While in Europe, he studied in Paris and later attended the University of Leiden in the Netherlands. These experiences not only broadened his educational horizons, but also provided him with a first-hand understanding of European politics and diplomacy. The Adams family's commitment to public service was unwavering. John Quincy's maternal great-grandfather, John Quincy, for whom he was named, had been a prominent member of the Massachusetts legislature. This legacy of civic duty was a cornerstone of his upbringing. The values of integrity, perseverance, and dedication to the public good were ingrained in him from a young age. The transatlantic voyages and the time spent in European capitals exposed John Quincy to diverse cultures and political systems. He became fluent in French and Dutch, skills that would later prove invaluable in his diplomatic career. The young Adams was not just a passive observer. He actively engaged in his father's work, serving as a secretary and translator. This early involvement in diplomacy provided him with practical experience and a deep understanding of international relations. Upon returning to the United States, John Quincy continued his education. He enrolled at Harvard College, where he graduated in 1787. His time at Harvard further honed his intellectual abilities and prepared him for a life of public service. The combination of his rigorous education and his unique experiences abroad set him apart from his contemporaries. The influence of his parents cannot be overstated. John Adams's dedication to the principles of liberty and governance, coupled with Abigail's emphasis on education and moral responsibility, shaped John Quincy's character and ambitions. Their correspondence during his time abroad reflects a relationship built on mutual respect and a shared commitment to the nation's ideals. In summary, John Quincy Adams's early life was characterized by an immersion in the revolutionary spirit of America, a comprehensive education both at home and abroad, and a family legacy steeped in public service. These formative experiences laid the foundation for his future roles as a diplomat, statesman, and eventually, the sixth President of the United States. His upbringing instilled in him a profound sense of duty and a vision for the country that would guide his actions throughout his illustrious career. Part 2. Education and Intellectual Development. John Quincy Adams's education was both unconventional and comprehensive, reflecting the unique circumstances of his upbringing. His early years were marked by a blend of formal schooling and experiential learning, largely influenced by his family's political engagements. This combination fostered a lifelong commitment to intellectual growth and public service. During his childhood, the absence of formal schooling in Braintree due to the Revolutionary War led his mother, Abigail Adams, to take charge of his education. She emphasized the importance of reading, writing, and critical thinking, instilling in him a love for literature and learning. Abigail's letters to her son often contained advice on moral and intellectual development, highlighting her role in shaping his character. The diplomatic missions with his father provided John Quincy with unparalleled educational opportunities. In Paris, he attended classes at the Passy Academy, where he studied subjects ranging from mathematics to languages. His exposure to French culture and politics during this period broadened his worldview and enhanced his linguistic skills. In the Netherlands, John Quincy enrolled at the University of Leiden, one of Europe's leading institutions. Here, he delved into classical studies, philosophy, and law, further expanding his intellectual horizons. The university's emphasis on critical inquiry and debate resonated with his inquisitive nature, encouraging him to explore diverse fields of knowledge. Upon returning to the United States, John Quincy continued his education at Harvard College. He entered as a junior in 1786 and graduated the following year with a Bachelor of Arts degree. His time at Harvard was marked by academic excellence and active participation in literary societies, where he honed his oratory and writing skills. These experiences were instrumental in preparing him for his future roles in diplomacy and politics. After Harvard, John Quincy pursued legal studies under Theophilus Parsons, a prominent Massachusetts lawyer. He was admitted to the bar in 1790 and began practicing law in Boston. Although his legal career was brief, it provided him with a solid foundation in legal principles and procedures, which would prove beneficial in his diplomatic endeavors. Throughout his life, John Quincy was an avid reader and writer. He maintained a diary from the age of 12 until his death, documenting his thoughts, experiences, and reflections. This extensive record offers invaluable insights into his intellectual development and the historical events of his time. His writings reveal a man deeply engaged with the philosophical and political ideas that were shaping the world. John Quincy's linguistic abilities were remarkable. In addition to English, he was fluent in French, Dutch, and German, and had a working knowledge of Spanish and Italian. These skills were not only a testament to his intellectual curiosity, but also essential tools in his diplomatic career. They enabled him to engage directly with foreign leaders and negotiate treaties without relying solely on interpreters. His intellectual pursuits were not confined to formal education. John Quincy was a member of several learned societies, including the American Academy of Arts and Sciences. He corresponded with scholars and political thinkers across the globe, engaging in discussions on topics ranging from science to philosophy. This network of intellectuals enriched his perspectives and informed his approach to governance and diplomacy. In summary, John Quincy Adams's education was a tapestry woven from formal studies, experiential learning, and a relentless pursuit of knowledge. His early exposure to international affairs, combined with rigorous academic training, equipped him with the skills and insights necessary for his future roles. His intellectual development was characterized by a commitment to lifelong learning, a trait that would define his contributions to American political and diplomatic history. Part 3. Entry into Diplomacy. John Quincy Adams's foray into diplomacy began at a remarkably young age, marking the start of a career that would fundamentally shape the direction of U.S. foreign relations. His appointment as U.S. Minister Resident to the Netherlands in 1794 by President George Washington was not only a reflection of his potential, but also a strategic move in a critical period of American history. At the time, the Netherlands was a significant financial hub and a key player in European politics, making Adams's role vital to securing American interests abroad. Adams's time in the Netherlands came during a period of immense political turmoil. The French Revolutionary Wars were reshaping the European balance of power, and the Netherlands itself was in a state of upheaval due to the French occupation. Despite these challenges, Adams excelled at his role, demonstrating his ability to navigate the complexities of international diplomacy. His efforts were focused on securing American loans from Dutch bankers to stabilize the young nation's economy, a task he carried out with precision and effectiveness. While stationed in the Netherlands, Adams honed his diplomatic skills through careful observation and engagement. He closely monitored developments across Europe, sending detailed reports back to the United States on political shifts and their potential implications for American foreign policy. These reports showcased his analytical acumen and deep understanding of global affairs, earning him the respect of his peers and superiors alike. His tenure in the Netherlands was marked by his meticulous approach to diplomacy, balancing tact and assertiveness in his dealings with foreign officials. In 1796, Adams's success in the Netherlands led to his appointment as U.S. Minister to Portugal, although his tenure there was short-lived. Before he could assume his post, he was reassigned to Prussia, modern-day Germany, by President John Adams, his father. This reassignment was a strategic decision aimed at fostering relations with a rising European power. As Minister to Prussia, Adams negotiated a highly favorable treaty of amity and commerce, solidifying trade relations between the two nations. Adams's ability to negotiate this treaty showcased his growing expertise in balancing national interests with the realities of international politics. He recognized the importance of establishing economic ties with Prussia to bolster American commerce, while also ensuring that these agreements aligned with the broader goals of American foreign policy. His diplomatic successes in Europe not only strengthened America's global standing, but also laid the groundwork for his future endeavors. These early years in diplomacy provided Adams with invaluable experience and a reputation as one of the nation's most capable statesmen. His work in the Netherlands and Prussia demonstrated his ability to represent American interests effectively on the world stage, even in the face of significant challenges. These experiences also deepened his understanding of European politics and the intricate web of alliances and rivalries that defined the era. Adams's entry into diplomacy was not just a stepping stone in his career, but a formative period that solidified his role as a key architect of American foreign policy. His efforts in securing financial stability, fostering trade relations, and navigating the turbulent European landscape exemplified the qualities that would define his illustrious career. His early successes established him as a trusted figure in U.S. foreign relations, setting the stage for the pivotal roles he would play in shaping the nation's future on the international stage. Part 4. Role in the Treaty of Ghent. John Quincy Adams's role in negotiating the Treaty of Ghent in 1814 marked a defining moment in his diplomatic career and in American history. The War of 1812, often referred to as the Second War of Independence, had thrust the United States into a precarious position against Great Britain. The conflict, fueled by trade restrictions, impressment of American sailors, and territorial disputes, had reached a stalemate by 1814. Both nations were eager to end hostilities and restore peace, leading to negotiations in the neutral city of Ghent, located in modern-day Belgium. Adams was appointed as one of 5 U.S. commissioners tasked with negotiating the treaty. The delegation also included notable figures such as Henry Clay and Albert Gallatin, each bringing unique perspectives and skills to the table. Adams, with his deep knowledge of European politics and his calm, methodical demeanor, quickly emerged as a key player in the negotiations. His ability to remain composed under pressure and his commitment to safeguarding American interests made him an invaluable asset to the delegation. The negotiations were arduous, lasting several months and involving intense debates over critical issues. The British delegation sought territorial concessions, including the establishment of an Indian buffer state in the Northwest Territory, which would have severely limited American expansion. Adams and his colleagues, however, stood firm in rejecting these demands, recognizing the long-term implications for U.S. sovereignty and territorial integrity. Their unified stance demonstrated a remarkable level of cohesion among the American commissioners, despite their differing political affiliations. Adams's strategic approach to diplomacy was evident throughout the negotiations. He understood that achieving a favorable outcome required not only persistence, but also a willingness to compromise on less critical issues. For instance, while the treaty did not address the contentious issue of impressment, a major cause of the war, it restored pre-war boundaries and ensured the cessation of hostilities without territorial losses for either side. This pragmatic approach reflected Adams's ability to prioritize the greater good over rigid demands. The signing of the Treaty of Ghent on December 24, 1814, was a turning point in U.S.-British relations. Although the treaty essentially restored the status quo ante bellum, its significance lay in its role as a foundation for lasting peace between the two nations. The war's conclusion, coupled with the American victory at the Battle of New Orleans shortly thereafter, bolstered national pride and solidified the United States' position as an independent power. For Adams, the successful negotiation of the treaty reinforced his reputation as a masterful diplomat. Adams's reflections on the Treaty of Ghent reveal his deep understanding of its broader implications. He recognized that the war and its resolution had demonstrated the resilience of the American Republic and its capacity to defend its interests. The treaty also marked a shift in U.S.-British relations, paving the way for cooperation and mutual respect in the decades to come. Adams's role in fostering this détente underscored his commitment to diplomacy as a means of securing peace and stability. The experience of negotiating the Treaty of Ghent further honed Adams's diplomatic skills and reinforced his belief in the importance of maintaining a strong, independent foreign policy. His meticulous preparation, intellectual rigor, and ability to navigate complex political landscapes were qualities that would define his subsequent roles in public service. The treaty not only ended a contentious chapter in American history, but also showcased Adams's exceptional ability to represent his nation's interests on the global stage. In summary, John Quincy Adams's involvement in the Treaty of Ghent was a testament to his diplomatic expertise and his unwavering dedication to the principles of national sovereignty and peace. His role in these negotiations cemented his legacy as one of America's foremost statesmen, whose contributions would continue to shape the nation's foreign policy for generations. This pivotal moment in his career exemplified his belief in the power of diplomacy to resolve conflicts and build lasting relationships between nations. Part 5. Minister to Russia and Britain. John Quincy Adams's service as a U.S. minister to Russia and later to Britain marked a critical phase in his diplomatic career, showcasing his ability to navigate complex international relationships while advancing American interests. These appointments placed him at the forefront of global affairs during a time of significant upheaval in Europe. His experiences during this period not only enhanced his reputation as a skilled diplomat, but also deepened his understanding of the intricate dynamics of global power. In 1809, President James Madison appointed Adams as the U.S. Minister to Russia, a post of immense strategic importance. This appointment marked the first time an American diplomat was stationed in Russia, reflecting the growing significance of U.S.-Russian relations. The Russian Empire, under Tsar Alexander I, was a pivotal player in European politics, especially during the Napoleonic Wars. Adams's assignment in St. Petersburg came with the dual objectives of strengthening diplomatic ties and securing economic opportunities for the United States. Adams's time in Russia was marked by notable successes. He cultivated a strong relationship with Tsar Alexander I, leveraging the emperor's admiration for the American experiment in democracy. This rapport proved invaluable in securing favorable trade agreements, including Russian support for American shipping rights. Additionally, Adams skillfully navigated the volatile European political landscape, using his position to monitor developments and keep the U.S. government informed. His detailed reports from Russia provided critical insights into Napoleon's invasion of the country and its aftermath. Despite the challenges of operating in a nation with vastly different political and cultural norms, Adams adapted effectively. He developed a deep respect for Russian society and governance, even as he remained committed to advancing American principles and interests. His fluency in multiple languages and his meticulous approach to diplomacy allowed him to engage meaningfully with Russian officials and other foreign envoys stationed in St. Petersburg. In 1814, following his success in negotiating the Treaty of Ghent, Adams was appointed U.S. Minister to Britain. This appointment placed him in one of the most prestigious and demanding diplomatic posts of the era. Britain, still recovering from the Napoleonic Wars, was a dominant global power, and its relationship with the United States remained complex following the War of 1812. Adams's primary task was to rebuild trust and lay the groundwork for a more cooperative relationship between the two nations. During his tenure in London, Adams worked tirelessly to resolve lingering tensions. He played a key role in implementing the Treaty of Ghent, ensuring that its provisions were carried out effectively. This included addressing issues related to boundary disputes and the return of territories captured during the war. Adams also sought to expand trade relations, advocating for policies that would benefit American merchants and manufacturers. His efforts contributed to the gradual normalization of U.S.-British relations, paving the way for increased economic and political collaboration. One of the most challenging aspects of Adams's mission in Britain was addressing the issue of American sailors who had been impressed into British service. Although the Treaty of Ghent did not resolve this contentious issue, Adams continued to press for a resolution. His persistence underscored his commitment to protecting American citizens and asserting the nation's sovereignty on the international stage. While progress on this front was slow, Adams's efforts laid the groundwork for future diplomatic negotiations. Adams's service in Britain also provided him with valuable insights into the workings of the British government and its approach to international relations. These experiences deepened his understanding of the global balance of power and informed his later policies as Secretary of State and President. His ability to engage with British officials, including Foreign Secretary Viscount Castlereagh, demonstrated his diplomatic acumen and his capacity to navigate complex political environments. In summary, John Quincy Adams's tenure as U.S. Minister to Russia and Britain was a testament to his skill as a diplomat and his unwavering dedication to advancing American interests. His successes in fostering relationships with two of the most powerful nations of the time underscored his belief in diplomacy as a tool for peace and progress. These experiences not only enhanced his personal legacy, but also strengthened the United States' position on the global stage, setting the foundation for the nation's future as a major international power. Part 6. Secretary of State and the Monroe Doctrine. John Quincy Adams's tenure as Secretary of State under President James Monroe, 1817 to 1825, is widely regarded as one of the most successful in American history. During this period, Adams transformed the office into a cornerstone of U.S. foreign policy, shaping the nation's global strategy and setting the stage for its emergence as a continental power. His achievements as Secretary of State, particularly his role in crafting the Monroe Doctrine, remain pivotal milestones in the development of American diplomacy. One of Adams's first major accomplishments as Secretary of State was the negotiation of the Adams-Onis Treaty with Spain in 1819. The treaty resolved long-standing territorial disputes between the United States and Spain, transferring Florida to American control and establishing a clear boundary between U.S. territory and Spanish claims in the West. This agreement not only secured vital land for the United States, but also demonstrated Adams's ability to achieve significant diplomatic victories without resorting to war. His meticulous negotiations showcased his strategic thinking and his commitment to expanding U.S. territory in a peaceful and lawful manner. Adams's vision for the United States was rooted in the idea of continental expansion and the establishment of a strong, independent presence in the Western Hemisphere. He believed that the United States had a unique role to play in promoting Republican ideals and resisting European interference in the Americas. This vision came to fruition with the development of the Monroe Doctrine, a defining moment in U.S. foreign policy. Although the doctrine was articulated by President Monroe in 1823, it was Adams who played the central role in its conception and articulation. The Monroe Doctrine declared that the Americas were off-limits to further European colonization and warned European powers against interfering in the affairs of independent nations in the Western Hemisphere. In return, the United States pledged not to interfere in the internal affairs of European nations or their existing colonies. This bold policy was rooted in Adams's belief that the Western Hemisphere should be free from the influence of monarchies and empires, aligning with the ideals of self-determination and republican governance. Adams's diplomatic finesse was evident in the way he framed the Monroe Doctrine. He understood the limitations of U.S. military power at the time and crafted the doctrine in a way that aligned American interests with those of Great Britain. Britain, with its powerful navy, had its own reasons for opposing renewed European colonization in the Americas. By appealing to these shared interests, Adams effectively secured British support for the doctrine, ensuring its viability and enforcement. Beyond the Monroe Doctrine, Adams also made significant contributions to U.S. foreign policy through his work on boundary agreements and trade negotiations. He played a crucial role in resolving disputes with Britain over the U.S.-Canada border through the Convention of 1818, which established the 49th parallel as the boundary from the Great Lakes to the Rocky Mountains. This agreement not only settled a contentious issue, but also demonstrated Adams's commitment to maintaining peaceful relations with Britain while protecting American territorial interests. Adams's tenure as Secretary of State was marked by a forward-looking approach to diplomacy. He emphasized the importance of long-term strategy and the need to assert American sovereignty without unnecessary entanglements in European conflicts. His focus on expanding U.S. territory, promoting economic opportunities, and safeguarding the principles of republicanism reflected his broader vision for the nation's role in the world. His efforts laid the groundwork for America's rise as a dominant force in the Western Hemisphere. The impact of Adams's work as Secretary of State cannot be overstated. His achievements during this period not only solidified his reputation as one of the greatest diplomats in American history, but also established a framework for U.S. foreign policy that would endure for generations. The Adams-Onis Treaty, the Monroe Doctrine, and the Convention of 1818 were all milestones that demonstrated his ability to think strategically and act decisively. These accomplishments showcased his understanding of the interplay between diplomacy, national interests, and the broader goals of liberty and self-governance. In summary, John Quincy Adams's service as Secretary of State was a transformative period in American diplomacy. His contributions to territorial expansion, the articulation of the Monroe Doctrine, and the resolution of international disputes underscored his vision of the United States as a leader in the Western Hemisphere. Through his meticulous diplomacy and unwavering commitment to Republican ideals, Adams helped shape a foreign policy that would define America's role in the world for centuries to come. Part 7. Election of 1824 and the Corrupt Bargain. The election of 1824 marked a turning point in American politics and John Quincy Adams's career. It was a contest that not only revealed the deep divisions within the nation, but also introduced new dynamics into the presidential election process. Adams emerged victorious, but his path to the presidency was fraught with controversy and conflict, culminating in what his opponents famously labeled the corrupt bargain. The election of 1824 featured four major candidates, all representing the Democratic-Republican Party, which was the dominant political force of the era. In addition to John Quincy Adams, the other contenders were Andrew Jackson, a war hero and populist favorite, Henry Clay, Speaker of the House of Representatives, and William H. Crawford, Secretary of the Treasury. Each candidate appealed to different regional and ideological factions, making this one of the most fractured and competitive elections in American history. The results of the popular and electoral votes underscored the fragmented nature of the race. Andrew Jackson won the most popular votes and carried a plurality of electoral votes, but he failed to secure the majority required to win the presidency. Adams came in second in the electoral count, followed by Crawford and Clay. According to the 12th Amendment to the Constitution, the election was sent to the House of Representatives to decide among the top three candidates. Clay, as the fourth-place finisher, was excluded from contention but held significant influence as Speaker of the House. The House of Representatives deliberations became a battleground of intense lobbying and political maneuvering. Adams, with his extensive diplomatic and political experience, positioned himself as a candidate capable of uniting the country and pursuing policies of national development. Henry Clay, who shared many of Adams's views on issues such as economic growth and infrastructure, ultimately threw his support behind Adams. This alliance would prove decisive. On February 9, 1825, the House of Representatives elected John Quincy Adams as the sixth President of the United States. The decision immediately sparked outrage among Jackson supporters, who had expected their candidate, as the popular vote leader, to emerge victorious. When Adams later appointed Clay as his Secretary of State, accusations of a corrupt bargain spread like wildfire. Jackson's supporters claimed that Adams and Clay had struck a backroom deal to secure the presidency, tarnishing Adams's legitimacy in the eyes of many Americans. Adams vehemently denied any impropriety, maintaining that his appointment of Clay was based solely on merit and shared principles. Clay, for his part, dismissed the accusations as baseless and defended their alliance as a natural alignment of shared visions for the nation. Despite their denials, the corrupt bargain narrative persisted, fueling a sense of betrayal among Jackson's supporters and setting the stage for a bitter political rivalry. The fallout from the election of 1824 had lasting consequences. It marked the beginning of a new era in American politics, characterized by the rise of mass political movements and the eventual formation of the Democratic Party under Jackson's leadership. For Adams, the controversy surrounding his election cast a shadow over his presidency, complicating his efforts to govern and implement his ambitious agenda. In retrospect, the election of 1824 and the corrupt bargain controversy highlight the evolving nature of American democracy. The shift from elite-driven politics to broader popular engagement was underway, and Adams's victory underscored the tensions between these competing visions of governance. While his ascent to the presidency was marred by allegations of corruption, his administration would nonetheless seek to promote the national interest through initiatives focused on internal improvements, education, and economic development. Adams's victory in 1824 remains one of the most contentious in U.S. history, but it also reflects the complexities of a growing republic grappling with questions of representation, legitimacy, and the balance of power. His ability to navigate this fraught political landscape, despite the challenges it posed, speaks to his resilience and commitment to public service. However, the election also set the stage for the turbulent political battles that would define his presidency and the emergence of a more populist, partisan political era. Part 8. The Presidency of John Quincy Adams. John Quincy Adams's presidency, 1825 to 1829, was characterized by ambitious policies aimed at national development and modernization, though it was overshadowed by fierce opposition and political strife. Adams entered the presidency with a grand vision for the United States, one rooted in the ideals of education, infrastructure, and innovation. Despite his intentions, his term was marked by significant challenges, including resistance from Congress and the lingering fallout from the contentious election of 1824. One of Adams's primary goals as president was to promote internal improvements, an initiative he believed would unify the nation and foster economic growth. Inspired by his father's vision of a robust federal government, Adams advocated for the construction of roads, canals, and other infrastructure to connect the growing country. He proposed an ambitious program that included the establishment of a national university, funding for scientific research, and the creation of a network of transportation systems to facilitate commerce and communication. These initiatives reflected Adams's forward-thinking approach and his belief in the role of government as a force for progress. Adams's commitment to education and intellectual development was a hallmark of his presidency. He viewed education as essential to the survival of the Republic, emphasizing the need for an informed and engaged citizenry. His proposals for a national university and federal funding for scientific endeavors were groundbreaking, though they faced stiff opposition from Congress. Many lawmakers, particularly from the South and Western states, opposed these measures, viewing them as overreach by the federal government and an infringement on states' rights. Another significant aspect of Adams's presidency was his focus on economic policy. He sought to strengthen the nation's economy by promoting domestic industries and expanding international trade. Adams supported protective tariffs designed to shield American manufacturers from foreign competition, a stance that deepened divisions between industrial and agricultural regions. The Tariff of 1828, known as the Tariff of Abominations, was passed during his administration but provoked outrage in the South, where it was seen as disproportionately benefiting the North. This controversy further alienated Adams from many constituents and amplified regional tensions. Adams also took a principled stance on issues related to Native American rights, standing apart from many of his contemporaries. He opposed the forced removal of Native Americans from their lands, advocating instead for their fair treatment and integration into American society. While his position was morally commendable, it was politically unpopular and met with resistance from pro-removal factions in Congress. Adams's progressive views on this issue reflected his broader commitment to justice and equality, though they came at a significant political cost. Despite his vision and dedication, Adams faced relentless opposition from a Congress dominated by Andrew Jackson's supporters. Jackson's allies, emboldened by the narrative of the corrupt bargain, worked to obstruct Adams's policies and undermine his presidency. This partisan gridlock severely limited Adams's ability to enact his ambitious agenda, leaving many of his proposals unrealized. The rise of Jacksonian populism, with its emphasis on limited government and states' rights, further eroded support for Adams's Federalist approach. Adams's presidency also reflected his deeply held belief in the rule of law and the importance of constitutional principles. Unlike many of his contemporaries, he refused to use patronage as a political tool, choosing instead to retain officials based on merit rather than loyalty. This decision, while ethically sound, weakened his political base and left him vulnerable to attacks from opponents. His unwillingness to compromise his principles for political gain was both a strength and a limitation of his leadership. In the election of 1828, Adams faced a rematch against Andrew Jackson in one of the most bitter and contentious campaigns in American history. Jackson's populist appeal and the lingering resentment over the 1824 election proved insurmountable. Adams lost decisively, bringing his presidency to an end, but not his commitment to public service. Though his presidency was fraught with challenges and setbacks, Adams's vision for national development and his steadfast dedication to principle left a lasting legacy. His ideas about infrastructure, education, and governance would influence future administrations, even as his own tenure in office was marred by political strife and unrealized ambitions. Part 9. Post-Presidency and Return to Public Service. John Quincy Adams's post-presidency marked one of the most remarkable comebacks in American political history. After losing the presidency to Andrew Jackson in 1828, Adams refused to retreat into obscurity. Instead, he embarked on a new chapter of public service that solidified his reputation as a principled statesman and champion of justice. His return to Congress as a member of the House of Representatives, an unprecedented move for a former president, set a powerful example of dedication to the nation above personal pride. In 1830, Adams was elected to the House of Representatives by his home district in Massachusetts. At the age of 63, he began a congressional career that would span nearly 17 years, earning him the nickname Old Man Eloquent for his passionate and articulate advocacy on a wide range of issues. His decision to serve in the House after holding the highest office in the land was seen by some as a step backward, but Adams viewed it as an opportunity to fight for causes he deeply believed in. This humility and sense of duty defined his post-presidential years. Adams's tenure in Congress was marked by his unwavering commitment to the abolition of slavery, a cause that would dominate much of his later career. At a time when slavery was entrenched in American society and politics, Adams became one of its most vocal and relentless opponents. He frequently clashed with pro-slavery legislators, using his platform to expose the moral and legal contradictions of the institution. His efforts to combat the gag rule, which sought to suppress anti-slavery petitions in Congress, showcased his tenacity and courage. The eventual repeal of the gag rule in 1844 was a testament to his perseverance and conviction. One of Adams's most celebrated moments in Congress came with his defense of the Amistad captives in 1841. The case involved a group of African men who had been illegally enslaved and transported aboard the Spanish ship Amistad. After seizing control of the vessel, the captives were apprehended by U.S. authorities, leading to a legal battle over their fate. Adams, at the age of 73, argued the case before the Supreme Court, delivering a masterful and impassioned defense of the captives' right to freedom. His efforts were successful, and the court ruled in favor of the captives, securing their release. This victory was not only a legal triumph, but also a powerful moral statement against the injustices of slavery. Adams's post-presidency was also marked by his dedication to advancing scientific knowledge and promoting education. He was a staunch advocate for the Smithsonian Institution, playing a key role in ensuring its establishment as a national resource for research and learning. His support for scientific inquiry and public education reflected his belief in the transformative power of knowledge and its role in sustaining a democratic society. These efforts underscored his lifelong commitment to intellectual and cultural development. Despite his advancing age, Adams remained a formidable presence in Congress, engaging in debates on a wide range of issues. His sharp intellect and eloquence earned him the respect of colleagues and opponents alike, even as his uncompromising principles often put him at odds with prevailing political sentiments. He saw his role in Congress as a continuation of his duty to serve the nation and uphold the ideals of liberty and justice. For Adams, public service was not merely a career, but a lifelong calling. In February 1848, while serving in the House of Representatives, Adams suffered a stroke on the House floor. He was carried to the Speaker's room, where he passed away 2 days later, surrounded by his family and colleagues. His final words, reportedly, were, "This is the last of earth. I am content," a fitting epitaph for a life devoted to public service and the pursuit of higher ideals. Adams's death marked the end of an extraordinary career that spanned nearly 7 decades, leaving a legacy of integrity, intellect, and unyielding commitment to justice. John Quincy Adams's post-presidential years exemplified enduring potential for leadership and service beyond the confines of the presidency. His willingness to confront difficult issues, particularly slavery, and his dedication to advancing knowledge and education ensured that his contributions to the nation extended far beyond his time in the White House. He remains a model of public service, demonstrating that true statesmanship lies not in seeking power, but in serving the greater good. Part 10. Legacy of John Quincy Adams. John Quincy Adams's legacy is one of complexity, integrity, and lasting influence on the development of the United States. Although his presidency was marred by political gridlock and partisan opposition, his contributions to the nation, particularly in the realms of foreign policy, abolition, and national development, endured long after his death. Adams's post-presidency further solidified his stature as one of America's most dedicated and principled leaders. His legacy, shaped by his lifelong dedication to public service, continues to inspire generations of Americans interested in the ideals of justice, equality, and intellectual advancement. One of Adams's most lasting contributions was his role in shaping U.S. foreign policy, particularly through his work as Secretary of State under President Monroe. His most enduring achievement, the Monroe Doctrine, fundamentally redefined the United States' relationship with Europe and the Western Hemisphere. The Monroe Doctrine established the principle that European powers should not interfere in the affairs of the Americas, asserting the United States as the dominant power in the Western Hemisphere. This bold foreign policy initiative laid the groundwork for future U.S. diplomacy and reinforced the country's role in global affairs, setting a standard for U.S. foreign relations that lasted for decades. Adams's diplomatic successes, including the negotiation of the Adams-Onis Treaty, which secured Florida for the United States, and the Treaty of Ghent, which ended the War of 1812, are also integral to his legacy. These achievements reflect his keen understanding of international relations and his ability to balance national interests with diplomatic finesse. His vision for America as a nation of peace and progress was integral to his leadership, and his ideas about sovereignty, national expansion, and global influence shaped U.S. foreign policy for years to come. In addition to his contributions to foreign policy, Adams's legacy as an abolitionist stands as a testament to his moral conviction and courage. Though he was not initially an outspoken critic of slavery, his years in the House of Representatives saw him become one of the most vocal and determined opponents of the institution. He fought tirelessly against the spread of slavery into new territories and states, and his actions to repeal the gag rule, which sought to prevent discussions of slavery in Congress, marked a critical moment in the abolitionist movement. His defense of the Amistad captives in the Supreme Court further cemented his place in the fight for human rights and the abolition of slavery. Adams's legal argument, which secured the release of the enslaved Africans who had rebelled aboard the Amistad, demonstrated his belief in the fundamental rights of all people, regardless of race or status. This legal victory was not just a triumph of justice, but a key moment in the broader struggle against slavery in the United States. Adams's role in the national debate over slavery laid the groundwork for future abolitionist efforts, though he did not live to see the end of the institution in the United States. His courage in confronting the deeply entrenched system of slavery in the early 19th century made him an important figure in the history of American civil rights, and his moral stand continued to inspire future generations of leaders dedicated to justice and equality. Adams's intellectual legacy is also considerable. His advocacy for education and scientific research, two causes he championed during his presidency and later in Congress, helped lay the foundation for America's intellectual and technological growth. His support for the Smithsonian Institution, as well as his vision for a national university, reflected his belief that knowledge was central to the progress of society. Though many of his educational ideas were not realized during his lifetime, they contributed to the development of institutions of learning that would later become cornerstones of American innovation and cultural development. As a political leader, Adams's legacy also emphasizes the importance of integrity and principle in leadership. He was a man who, despite facing immense political pressure, never compromised his convictions. Whether through his strong stance on foreign policy, his tireless defense of human rights, or his commitment to intellectual growth, Adams remained steadfast in his beliefs throughout his career. His refusal to use political patronage and his reluctance to engage in partisan politics set him apart from many of his contemporaries and highlighted his unique approach to governance. In the years following his death, Adams's reputation as a statesman grew, and he came to be recognized not only for his accomplishments, but also for his unwavering commitment to the ideals of the American Revolution. His vision of the United States as a beacon of liberty and a leader in the global pursuit of democracy continues to resonate today. John Quincy Adams's legacy is, therefore, one of profound influence, an embodiment of the ideals of public service, intellectual integrity, and moral courage that helped define the early years of the American Republic. His life serves as a model for future generations of leaders who seek to balance ambition with principle, and his contributions to American history remain deeply ingrained in the fabric of nation. Part 11. Reflections on the life and political thought of John Quincy Adams. John Quincy Adams's life and political thought offer a rich and multifaceted legacy, one that continues to resonate deeply in the study of American history and governance. His journey, from the son of one of the nation's founders to a foreign diplomat, president, and finally, an impassioned congressman, reveals a man whose dedication to principle and service remained unwavering throughout his life. His views on governance, liberty, and national identity reveal a profound intellectual depth that shaped not only his career, but also the trajectory of nation. Adams's political thought was heavily influenced by his formative experiences, particularly his years as a diplomat in Europe. His exposure to European political and philosophical ideas, especially during his time in the Netherlands, Russia, and Prussia, helped him develop a sophisticated understanding of international relations, diplomacy, and the delicate balance between power and principle in statecraft. These experiences shaped much of his approach to foreign policy and his vision for a United States that would stand as a moral and political force in the world. As a statesman, Adams believed strongly in the importance of intellectual and moral development for both individuals and societies. He viewed the pursuit of knowledge, wisdom, and virtue as essential to the functioning of a just republic. His admiration for the Enlightenment thinkers, particularly those who championed reason, liberty, and the rule of law, was central to his philosophy. Adams's speeches and writings reveal his belief that the United States was a beacon for these ideals and that the nation's purpose extended beyond its borders, to lead by example in the world's moral and political affairs. Adams's commitment to liberty, however, was not confined to rhetoric alone. It was deeply woven into his views on the rights and freedoms of individuals. One of the most significant aspects of his political thought was his growing opposition to slavery. Though his early political career did not see him as an abolitionist in the strict sense, Adams's moral compass gradually led him to recognize slavery as a profound contradiction to the nation's founding principles. His opposition to slavery and his dedication to its abolition marked a key turning point in his career and was a defining feature of his post-presidency years in Congress. In his later years, Adams's conception of liberty expanded to encompass not only the political freedoms of individuals, but also their economic and social rights. His advocacy for economic development and national infrastructure reflected his belief that prosperity should be shared broadly, contributing to a more equitable society. He saw the promotion of national projects such as internal improvements and scientific research as means to foster national unity and strengthen the Republic's democratic foundation. These views aligned with his Federalist leanings, as he believed that a strong, centralized government could effectively promote the common good, particularly in a rapidly expanding and diverse nation. Adams's views on the role of government in citizens' lives were complex and evolved over time. As president, he championed the role of government in fostering national progress through infrastructure, education, and scientific advancement, but his views on this were often at odds with the more populist, states' rights-oriented ideologies of his political adversaries. His willingness to act in what he perceived as the national interest, even when it meant alienating key political factions, demonstrated his principled approach to governance. Though he was often criticized for his top-down approach to policy, Adams believed that a strong central government was crucial for ensuring the prosperity and integrity of nation. Adams's belief in the importance of education as a vehicle for both personal and societal growth was another hallmark of his thought. He saw education as a vital tool for the survival of democracy, insisting that informed citizenry was essential for the proper functioning of the republic. He advocated for the creation of national institutions dedicated to learning and research, and his support for the Smithsonian Institution was a manifestation of this belief. He envisioned a nation where intellectual pursuits were not merely valued but actively promoted by the government, creating a culture of innovation and discovery that would ensure the country's future success. While Adams's political thought was deeply rooted in Enlightenment ideals, his practical political career demonstrated the challenges of translating these lofty principles into actionable policy. His tenure in the White House was marked by constant struggle with a fractious Congress, and his post-presidency years were spent waging moral and intellectual battles in the House of Representatives. He often found himself in opposition not just to other politicians, but to the political tides of the time, particularly the rise of Jacksonian democracy and the populist forces that sought to decentralize power and minimize the role of the federal government. Yet, despite the setbacks and frustrations of his political career, Adams's intellectual and moral legacy endures. His belief in reason and justice, and in the ultimate triumph of right over might provides an enduring framework for understanding the values upon which the United States was founded. His life challenges the notion that public service is only about the pursuit of power, demonstrating instead that leadership, at its highest, is about serving the greater good, upholding the moral foundations of a society, and working toward a more perfect union. John Quincy Adams's career, characterized by intellectual rigor, moral clarity, and an unwavering commitment to public service, serves as a model for future leaders committed to justice, equality, and the pursuit of knowledge. His reflections on governance, liberty, and the role of the state in promoting the welfare of its citizens remain a crucial part of the conversation about American identity and political philosophy today. Part 12. John Quincy Adams and the Shaping of the U.S. Political System. John Quincy Adams's impact on the U.S. political system is undeniable, as his career spanned some of the most transformative decades in American history. His presidency, congressional tenure, and diplomatic service influenced the evolution of the nation's political institutions, shaping the trajectory of American governance in ways that extended well beyond his time in office. Adams's contributions to the structure of U.S. foreign policy, domestic governance, and political ideology reflect the complex nature of his political thought and the enduring legacy he left behind. One of Adams's most significant contributions to the U.S. political system was his role in shaping the nation's approach to foreign diplomacy, which became a cornerstone of American governance in the 19th century. His development of the Monroe Doctrine in 1823, while serving as Secretary of State, fundamentally altered the nation's position on international relations. The Monroe Doctrine proclaimed that any European intervention in the Americas would be seen as an act of aggression, signaling the United States' determination to assert its influence and protect its interests in the Western Hemisphere. This doctrine became a guiding principle of U.S. foreign policy for generations, influencing the country's actions in Latin America and its relations with European powers. Adams's diplomatic vision, based on national self-interest and moral duty, set a precedent for future American foreign policy, advocating for both strategic engagement and the preservation of sovereignty in a rapidly changing global landscape. Adams's focus on foreign diplomacy was not limited to the Monroe Doctrine. His broader approach to international relations reflected his belief in the importance of moral leadership and peaceful coexistence. He understood the value of diplomacy in preventing conflicts and preserving national integrity, emphasizing negotiation over warfare when possible. His involvement in the Treaty of Ghent, which ended the War of 1812, and his later negotiations to secure the Adams-Onis Treaty, which ceded Florida to the United States, were vital in expanding American territory and solidifying its standing as a rising power in the Americas. These diplomatic successes, marked by patience and keen strategic insight, helped position the United States as a nation of peace and influence. Domestically, Adams's presidency was defined by his advocacy for national infrastructure and economic development, ideas that resonated with his broader vision of a unified and prosperous republic. His proposals for internal improvements, including national roads, canals, and scientific advancements, reflected his belief in the federal government's role in fostering national unity and economic growth. Although these ideas were met with resistance, particularly from Jacksonian Democrats and agrarian interests, they set the stage for future federal investment in national infrastructure, a key component of American economic development in the 19th century. Adams's ideas would eventually be embraced in varying forms by subsequent administrations, particularly during the era of industrialization and westward expansion. His advocacy for a national bank, protective tariffs, and internal improvements highlighted his belief in a strong federal government capable of steering the nation toward progress and prosperity. Another notable aspect of Adams's influence on the political system was his engagement with the question of slavery, which became a dominant issue in American politics after the 1820s. Although Adams was not initially an abolitionist, his evolving views on slavery positioned him as a significant figure in the anti-slavery movement in the 1830s and 1840s. His vocal opposition to the gag rule in Congress, which sought to silence debates on slavery, and his steadfast defense of the rights of African Americans, reflected his belief in justice and equality. His efforts to ensure that slavery remained a central issue in American politics, even when it was politically unpopular, pushed the nation toward an inevitable confrontation that would eventually culminate in the Civil War. Adams's approach to the political system also reflected his deep commitment to the rule of law and constitutional principles. His reluctance to use patronage to build political support or to compromise his principles for political gain set him apart from many of his contemporaries. In an era when patronage and party loyalty were often the currency of political success, Adams's decision to rely on merit-based appointments and to maintain an ethical distance from party politics demonstrated his belief in the ideal of a government that served the public good rather than partisan interests. While his uncompromising stance often led to political isolation, it also underscored his belief in the importance of maintaining integrity in public service. In the context of the evolving political landscape of the United States, Adams's presidency can be seen as an embodiment of the tensions between federal authority and the growing power of populist movements. His rejection of the states' rights philosophy, espoused by Andrew Jackson, and his support for a stronger central government made him an ideological counterpoint to Jacksonian democracy. Adams's leadership style, rooted in reason and moral conviction, set a stark contrast to the more populist, democratic ideals that Jackson represented. His presidency marked the end of the era of good feelings and the beginning of a new, more contentious era in American politics, one defined by shifting political alignments and increasingly polarized national debates. Though Adams lost the 1828 election to Jackson, his influence on American political thought, particularly in terms of the role of government and the rights of individuals, continued to be felt for decades after his presidency. Adams's ability to navigate these political tensions, balancing his commitment to national unity with his intellectual rigor and moral principles, helped shape the future of the U.S. political system. His emphasis on education, infrastructure, and constitutional integrity would resonate throughout American politics, influencing later reformers and shaping the values of the nation in the 19th and 20th centuries. Part 13. The Influence of John Quincy Adams on Modern American Thought. John Quincy Adams's intellectual and moral contributions continue to shape modern American thought in ways that are still relevant today. While he was not a revolutionary in the sense of radical change, his ideas on liberty, governance, and national identity laid a foundation for some of the most enduring aspects of American political and social thought. His views on foreign policy, human rights, education, and the role of government continue to be points of reference for modern politicians, intellectuals, and citizens seeking to navigate the complexities of the 21st century. One of Adams's most enduring influences is his vision of American exceptionalism and the nation's role in the world. His concept of the United States as a beacon of liberty and democracy has been invoked by nearly every American president since his time, shaping both the nation's foreign policy and its self-identity. The idea that America has a unique role in promoting democracy, human rights, and the rule of law can be traced back to Adams's diplomatic philosophy, particularly his belief in the importance of peaceful diplomacy and the defense of the Western Hemisphere against European intervention. This vision of American leadership, based on moral principles and international responsibility, has remained a guiding force in U.S. foreign policy throughout the 19th and 20th centuries and continues to be a touchstone in discussions about the nation's role in global affairs. Adams's foreign policy ideas also contributed to the notion of a proactive, morally grounded approach to international relations, one that was aimed at advancing human rights and justice. His advocacy for the abolition of slavery, his support for the Amistad captives, and his unwavering commitment to human dignity all underscore a broader moral vision that extended beyond national borders. In the 20th and 21st centuries, this commitment to universal human rights has found resonance in U.S. foreign policy, especially as it relates to global humanitarian efforts, the fight for civil rights, and support for democratic movements around the world. Adams's belief that diplomacy and moral leadership could help resolve conflicts and promote peace in the international community has left an indelible mark on American political thought and practice. The concept of liberty was another central pillar of Adams's thinking that has influenced modern American thought. Adams's understanding of liberty was not just a political abstraction, but a moral imperative, one that required constant vigilance to protect and expand for all people, regardless of race or social standing. His evolving stance on slavery, particularly in his later years, exemplifies his deepening commitment to the universal nature of liberty and human rights. Adams's staunch opposition to slavery and his belief that the institution was fundamentally incompatible with the ideals of the American Revolution continue to inform contemporary debates about race, equality, and justice in the United States. His views on liberty laid the groundwork for later civil rights movements, from abolition to the civil rights movement of the 1960s, and his legacy continues to inspire activists and leaders who seek to promote freedom and equality for all. Moreover, Adams's advocacy for education and intellectual advancement has had a profound impact on modern American educational thought. His belief that a well-educated citizenry was essential to the survival of democracy resonates with contemporary educational reforms that emphasize the importance of critical thinking, civic engagement, and access to quality education for all. Adams's support for institutions like the Smithsonian Institution reflected his recognition of the importance of science, research, and the arts in shaping a progressive society. Today, his vision for a nation where knowledge and intellectual inquiry are integral to national growth and stability continues to influence the goals of educational policy and the development of national research institutions. Adams's views on governance, which emphasize the role of a strong central government in promoting the common good, have had a lasting effect on modern political debates. While his support for federalism and the active involvement of a national government in promoting infrastructure and economic development may have been contentious in his time, his ideas are seen as a precursor to modern liberal thought about the role of government in addressing social welfare and economic inequality. In the 20th and 21st centuries, his belief in a government that works to improve the lives of its citizens through education, healthcare, and public services has resonated with advocates for progressive policies and government intervention in the economy. John Quincy Adams's enduring influence also extends to his moral vision of public service. He believed that leadership should be based on principle, integrity, and a commitment to justice, not on party loyalty or personal ambition. This ideal of selfless, principle-based leadership continues to be an aspiration for many modern politicians, even as political polarization often challenges such aspirations. Adams's commitment to serving the nation, rather than seeking political power for its own sake, remains an important touchstone for discussions about the ethics of leadership and the responsibilities of public servants. Finally, Adams's intellectual legacy has contributed to the broader tradition of American political thought, particularly in its synthesis of moral philosophy and practical governance. His ability to balance high ideals with pragmatic political action serves as a model for how leaders can navigate the challenges of governance without compromising their principles. Adams's thoughts on the American Republic, rooted in Enlightenment ideals, remain relevant as the nation continues to grapple with questions of governance, justice, and national identity. In modern times, his political philosophy can still be used to address contemporary issues, from the role of government in economic development to the protection of civil rights and the promotion of international peace. John Quincy Adams's life and ideas serve as a reminder that political leadership is not merely about wielding power, but about striving toward a higher moral purpose and working for the greater good. His legacy continues to shape modern American thought, offering a blueprint for how individuals and nations can aspire to live up to their highest ideals. Part 14. John Quincy Adams's role in shaping American nationalism. John Quincy Adams played a pivotal role in shaping the concept of American nationalism, particularly in the early 19th century, as the United States sought to define its place within the international community and strengthen its national identity. His presidency, his tenure as Secretary of State, and his broader political philosophy were instrumental in shaping the values and principles that would guide the United States through a period of expansion, international tension, and internal division. Through his foreign and domestic policies, Adams helped lay the foundations for a strong sense of national purpose, centered on the belief that the United States had a unique destiny to lead by example in the world. At the heart of Adams's conception of American nationalism was the belief in the country's exceptionalism, not in the sense of superiority over other nations, but in its moral and political mission to represent ideals of liberty, justice, and democracy. His development of the Monroe Doctrine in 1823 was a defining moment in the history of American foreign policy and a direct assertion of the nation's growing sense of identity and autonomy on the global stage. The Monroe Doctrine essentially declared the Western Hemisphere off-limits to European colonization or interference, which was a bold statement of United States sovereignty and its commitment to defending the integrity of the Americas from external powers. By articulating this doctrine, Adams positioned the United States as a protector of democracy and self-determination, ideas that resonated deeply within the national psyche and contributed to a sense of American exceptionalism. Adams's view of American nationalism was also rooted in the idea of territorial expansion and the notion that the United States had a rightful claim to more territory, both in the Western Hemisphere and within its own borders. His diplomatic success in securing the Adams-Onis Treaty in 1819, which led to Spain ceding Florida to the United States, expanded the nation's territory and reinforced the idea of manifest destiny, the belief that the U.S. was destined to expand across North America. Though the term manifest destiny itself did not gain popularity until the 1840s, the policies Adams supported in his foreign dealings helped lay the groundwork for this concept, encouraging the belief in a United States with limitless potential. As president, Adams sought to build the infrastructure and institutions necessary to bind the nation together and promote a sense of national unity. His advocacy for internal improvements such as roads, canals, and bridges was driven by the belief that a physically connected nation would create a stronger sense of identity and cohesion among its people. These projects were part of his broader vision to create a more modern, interconnected republic that would provide economic opportunities and foster a sense of shared national purpose. Despite resistance from Jacksonian Democrats who prioritized state rights, Adams's commitment to federal involvement in these projects reflected his belief that a strong national government could play a vital role in unifying a rapidly growing and diverse country. Domestic policies aimed at economic development were not the only way Adams sought to promote American nationalism. His emphasis on education and intellectual development also played a significant role in shaping the national consciousness. Adams viewed education as key to the future of the Republic, believing that an informed citizenry was essential for the preservation of democratic ideals. He supported the establishment of national scientific institutions like the Smithsonian and advocated for a system of national universities, all of which were designed to foster a sense of shared intellectual and cultural identity across the nation. Through these efforts, Adams worked to ensure that future generations of Americans would not only have the skills to contribute to the economy, but also possess the intellectual and moral foundation necessary to sustain democratic governance. On the international stage, Adams's nationalism extended beyond the protection of the United States to include an active engagement with the world, which he believed could contribute to global peace and stability. His diplomatic successes, including the resolution of border disputes with Canada and the negotiation of treaties with European powers, were part of his broader vision for a United States that would serve as a moral and political leader on the world stage. By advocating for the peaceful resolution of conflicts and promoting the idea that the United States could act as a moral example for other nations, Adams sought to reinforce the notion of American exceptionalism in a broader international context. His insistence on upholding the principles of international law and justice reflected his belief that nationalism was not about isolation, but rather about asserting moral leadership in a complex world. Adams's intellectual and moral vision also played a role in shaping American nationalism by framing the United States as a republic defined by its commitment to liberty and equality, values enshrined in the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. His gradual opposition to slavery, which he saw as a moral stain on the nation's character, led him to argue that the true strength of the United States lay in its adherence to those principles of liberty and equality for all citizens. By championing abolition, Adams sought to align the nation's practices with its founding ideals, arguing that the extension of freedom to all individuals was essential to the nation's identity. This moral stance, though not widely embraced in his time, would ultimately contribute to the rise of abolitionism and eventual transformation of American nationalism into a more inclusive and just identity. In examining Adams's role in shaping American nationalism, it becomes clear that his vision of national identity was multifaceted and dynamic. He saw the United States as a republic with a unique and important role in the world, one that was defined by moral principles, democratic ideals, and an ever-expanding sense of unity and purpose. His policies, both foreign and domestic, helped forge a more cohesive national identity, while his intellectual and moral contributions challenged a country to live up to its highest ideals. Though Adams's presidency was marred by political opposition, and his efforts to promote nationalism were often met with resistance, his legacy as an architect of American national identity remains firmly entrenched in the nation's history. Part 15. The Enduring Legacy of John Quincy Adams in the 21st Century. John Quincy Adams's legacy continues to echo through the corridors of American history, shaping not only the development of the nation during his time, but also leaving a lasting imprint on contemporary political, social, and diplomatic thought. In the 21st century, his ideas on democracy, liberty, governance, and foreign policy remain relevant, offering valuable insights into the challenges and opportunities the United States faces in a rapidly changing global landscape. His intellectual and moral convictions continue to inspire leaders and citizens, as his vision of a nation grounded in principle and dedicated to the promotion of justice has become a touchstone for debates on American identity, foreign relations, and the role of government. In the realm of American foreign policy, Adams's doctrine of non-intervention and moral leadership remains a key point of reference. His formulation of the Monroe Doctrine, which sought to protect the Americas from European colonization, continues to shape the U.S. approach to the Western Hemisphere. While the doctrine's original context has evolved over time, its underlying principle, that the United States has a special responsibility to safeguard democracy and stability in the Americas, has endured. In the 21st century, U.S. foreign policy continues to reflect Adams's belief in a moral responsibility to support democratic movements, promote peace, and defend human rights globally. This sense of global responsibility, alongside a commitment to non-interference in internal affairs, is a cornerstone of American diplomacy, particularly in Latin America and the Caribbean. Adams's emphasis on the rule of law and importance of justice in foreign policy also remains a key element of modern American thought. In a world where international relations are often fraught with complexities, Adams's belief in the power of diplomacy over military intervention offers a model for navigating global tensions. His advocacy for peaceful negotiations rather than war has become an ideal for policymakers seeking to resolve conflicts diplomatically in the 21st century, particularly in areas like the Middle East and East Asia. While the challenges of global governance have changed since Adams's time, his commitment to using international law and diplomacy to address conflicts continues to inspire those who seek peaceful solutions to global disputes. Domestically, Adams's vision of a strong national government with a commitment to infrastructure, education, and the common good remains a relevant ideal for contemporary debates about the role of government in society. His advocacy for federal investment in infrastructure, scientific research, and education anticipated many of the policies that would later be embraced during the New Deal and beyond. In today's America, the debate continues over the role of government in fostering economic growth, providing public services, and ensuring access to education and health care. Adams's belief that the federal government could play a key role in promoting national prosperity and unity is a guiding principle for modern progressive politics, particularly in relation to policies designed to address economic inequality, public health, and climate change. Adams's legacy also persists in the intellectual realm, where his commitment to education and the promotion of knowledge continues to influence modern educational policy. His advocacy for a well-educated citizenry has become a central tenet of American democracy, with ongoing efforts to improve public education and expand access to higher learning. Adams's vision of a nation where science, culture, and intellectual inquiry were central to the public good remains a guiding philosophy in the support of academic research, STEM, science, technology, engineering and mathematics, education, and the humanities. In the 21st century, the United States continues to benefit from a robust system of universities, research institutions, and scientific advancements that reflect Adams's vision of intellectual growth as a fundamental pillar of national development. On the moral front, Adams's opposition to slavery and his commitment to justice and equality paved the way for the civil rights movements that would follow. His evolving stance on slavery, culminating in his outspoken efforts to oppose its expansion, marked a significant moment in the development of American values around race and human rights. In the modern era, his example continues to resonate in the ongoing fight for racial justice, with many of his principles guiding contemporary movements advocating for equality, civil rights, and the protection of marginalized groups. The struggle to align the nation's practices with its founding ideals of liberty and justice remains central to American political discourse, and Adams's role in challenging the moral failings of his time serves as a model for confronting contemporary injustices. Adams's complex legacy also influences discussions about American exceptionalism in the 21st century. While some have critiqued the concept as overly nationalistic or imperialistic, others continue to draw on Adams's idea of the United States as a moral leader in the world. His vision of American exceptionalism was grounded in the belief that the nation had a unique responsibility to promote liberty and democracy, both at home and abroad, a principle that remains at the heart of American foreign policy and national self-identity. His contributions to the understanding of American power and responsibility continue to shape discussions about the nation's role in the world, especially in an era of global challenges such as climate change, terrorism, and economic inequality. In sum, John Quincy Adams's legacy is one of enduring relevance, offering timeless insights into the ideals of governance, diplomacy, and justice. His intellectual rigor, moral clarity, and unwavering commitment to principle have left an indelible mark on American history, and his influence can still be seen in contemporary debates about the role of government, the defense of human rights, and the nation's place in the world. As a statesman, diplomat, and advocate for the common good, Adams's vision continues to shape the course of American political thought and provides a moral compass for future generations seeking to uphold the nation's highest ideals. Thanks for tuning in to Historical Legacies. If you enjoyed this dive into history, please like, subscribe, and share. Join us next time for more fascinating stories from the past.